million in Constantinople, and they're going this way towards Lire. Not bad, but confusing. If you start from the Lire and you go to the Sainte-Chapelle, now you see, wow, that's the natural way it should have gone. The arguments are simpler, I think, that way. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to go through the inventories of the relics and the reliquaries in the Grande Chasse. The Grande Chasse, we're going to see it. It's actually in the Sainte-Chapelle. It was in the Sainte-Chapelle. And it's actually the complex part of this presentation. The inventory is written in French. We have to interpret everything precisely. So it's a bit complicated there. And then I'm going to propose a date and location for the transfer of the shroud to Geoffroy de Charny, a place which I think is the most probable place and the most probable time where Geoffroy de Charny received the shroud. He received the shroud, according to the Sainte-Chapelle theory, from Philip VI, King Philip VI. And answer, if I have some time, if I have time enough, I will answer some objections that were raised against the thesis of Sainte-Chapelle. Actually, these objections are often very natural. People say, well, it cannot be true because of this, that. So I'm going to try to answer these objections if I have enough time. So if you walk in Paris, not too far from Notre Dame Church, you can see this you can see a lot of the sun here. You can see this sparrow. You can see an angel. Yeah, there's an angel around here. Well, you cannot go here, but so this is the Sainte-Chapelle on the left. The Sainte-Chapelle is there. So there's a building in front of it and next to it. So the Sainte-Chapelle is kind of enclave between different buildings. The building next to it on the right is the Justice Building. So in this corner here of the city of Paris, it's the old city of Paris, the very old one. So the Sainte-Chapelle is there, and then if you go close to it, so if you try to enter the Sainte-Chapelle, you're right next to it. When you stand, you see it right away in front of you. There's very little space between the building next to it and the building the Sainte-Chapelle itself. You have to go around, and it's actually not very big because it's on one nave. It's a one-nave church. If you go inside of it, it looks like this big wall of stained glasses. It's all around you. This is the high part of the Sainte-Chapelle because there's a lower part and there's a high part. So this is the Sainte-Chapelle Haute, the high part of the Sainte-Chapelle. And there's a very interesting thing we can see right away. In the center there, you can see a platform. I didn't mention that before in the previous presentation. We can see it pretty well here, the platform. This platform was behind the altar. And this platform had the Grande Chasse on it. And in the Grande Chasse, it was locked completely. It has two doors in the back. And the 22 relics from Constantinople was inside this Grande Chasse. Almost everything disappeared during the French Revolution. So we have almost none of the relics. We have some of them today, but only the crown of thorn and a piece of the true cross is still in Notre Dame. And according to the theory, we still have another one, which So all the relics were there. So they were actually not very accessible. They were hidden completely, although the Grande Chasse was in plain view. So the thesis of the Sainte-Chapelle, I just actually said it somehow, but the first paragraph summarizes what is the thesis of the Sainte-Chapelle. A holy cloth from Constantinople, and the term holy cloth is important. It doesn't say shroud, of course, it doesn't say mandilion, it's a holy cloth. Holy cloth from Constantinople arrived at the Sainte-Chapelle in 1241, and King Philip VI, which is of course a descendant, far descendant, like the fifth king of France from Saint Louis, from 1241, unaware is very important, unaware of the presence of the image on the holy cloth, gave it to Geoffroy de Charny. So the idea here, of course, is that he didn't know the importance of that relic. If he had known, he would have kept it, obviously. And how come he didn't know? So that's always the first thing, the objection that comes to mind. How come? But we can see through the documents that, of course, they didn't know. They didn't know. I shouldn't say of course, but they didn't know. And we can see that from the historical document. So So the argument I'm going to use is the following. When searching for the origin of the relics at the Church of Lirey, the historical documents naturally lead to the Sainte-Chapelle. It's very natural. It's very simple. There's nothing obscure there. And we find out that the only relic at the Sainte-Chapelle, similar to the Shroud, is the Holy Cloth, which turned out to be the Mendelian. The expert all say, oh, the Holy Cloth is the Mendelian. So the connection to the Mendelians occurs at that point. So we do not assume, when we start the whole argument, we do not assume that the Mendelian is the Holy Cloth. It's the opposite. We arrive to the conclusion that the Shroud connects to the Mendelian, following basic historical documents. So to me, the Sainte-Chapelle of Paris is a direct and natural passage of the Shroud from the Middle East to France. So the people who started this thesis, Werner Bills actually in '85 did mention, or they did state, that to his knowledge, the Shroud of Turin, the Sainte-Chapelle of Paris thesis is probably the most probable origin of the Shroud of Turin. And then later on, Hilda Linen, she's deceased now, and Father André-Marie Dubarle, who also is deceased in 2002, passed away in 2002, they worked together. They really worked together to create this thesis. Essentially, Hilda Linen, as far as I know, was the first person to really look carefully at all the inventories of the relics and the reliquaries that we have today of the Sainte-Chapelle. And then she realized that the Holy Cloth disappeared from the Sainte-Chapelle. But when you read the text, it's not obvious, but we can discover that when we read it. And Father Dubarle published a book which is called Histoire ancienne du linceul de Turin. It's a French book. It was also translated in Italian, but unfortunately not in English. And he described the whole theory. And Father André Dubarle was teaching theology and history at the Solchoir in Paris. The thesis of the Sainte-Chapelle actually creates such an identity of Mendelian and Shroud of Turin. And Jan Wilson proposed this identity of Shroud of Turin and Mendelian a long time ago. However, I think Jan Wilson denied the passage of the Mendelian through the Sainte-Chapelle. And unfortunately, I think this is what creates the great obscure identity between the Shroud of Turin and the Mendelian. So the best way, I think, to connect the two together is the Sainte-Chapelle of Paris, the thesis of Sainte-Chapelle of Paris. So what we're going to do now, we're going to look at different historical facts and documents. And so we're going to look into the funding of the Lirey Church. Who funded the Lirey Church is Philip VI, King Philip VI. Also, there's another document that lists the relics that were at the Lirey Church. Interestingly, the only document we have is that late, 1418, we have a list of the relics that were in Lirey. And as you know, Lirey is the place where the Shroud first appeared in France. And there's another important statement made by Geoffroy II, and his daughter, Marguerite de Charny, and both of them said something about where it was from, so we have to look into that. And also there's a document called Pour savoir la vérité. Pour savoir la vérité. It was written around 1525. This document is often ignored by historians because supposedly it contains a lot of errors. But actually, yeah, it contains some errors and it contains a fanciful story in it, but it does say in it, and this document was written by the canons in Lirey in 1525. It says that Philip VI did give the shroud to Geoffroy. So let's look at this document just to make sure that they exist. And so in June 1343 and April 1349, Philip VI accepts a request from Geoffroy de Charny to found a new church. So he's the provider of the money to fund the church. Also, Philip VI has had exclusive access to the most prestigious collection of relics of Christ. So we have to remember that the relics that are in Sainte-Chapelle, they're not controlled by the clerics at the Sainte-Chapelle. They're controlled by the king. That's very different. The king has the key even on himself all the time, in some cases, of the Grand Chasse. This is how important it is for him. So he's the only one that can go and actually access the relics and do something with them. And of course, Saint Louis and many other kings, they give pieces of the relics to many churches in many places. So we have lots of documents about that. And so at first, who is the most natural provider of the relics to Lire, without looking at anything else so far? Philip VI. Philip VI has the relics, he has the money, so he's probably the one that provided the relics to Lire. Now, we have to confirm that with more documents. So in 1418, a receipt listing the relics of Lire is given by Humbert de Villers-Saxel, who is actually the husband of Marguerite de Charny. He gives a receipt to the canons of Lire listing the relics. Why does he give this receipt? It's because it's the 100-year war, and around the rural area, you got bandits and robbers that goes around and steals things in churches. So to protect the precious objects at the Lire church, they are moved to the castle of Humbert de Villers-Saxel. So the receipt actually lists many things, but three important relics are mentioned: a shroud impressed with an image of Christ. So that comes from Lire, and it is in a box with the arms of Geoffroy de Charny. So it's Geoffroy de Charny who provided that shroud. So we know that from that. A piece of the true cross and a reliquary containing a hair of the Virgin. The third relic is very interesting. This is a very rare relic. Almost nobody has such a relic in France in that time. And we're going to see that next. Philip VI has this relic in his collection. So, and we're going to look into that. Philip VI has clearly relics 2 and 3 at the Sainte-Chapelle of Paris. It's listed by name. So Philip VI has 2 important relics here. The first one, whoops, it's not that obvious to see in the list of relics, but we're going to look into that. So, that's slowly we're going towards the Sainte-Chapelle. So there's 2 statements made by the family of de Charny about how the shroud was obtained by Geoffroy I. So the son of Geoffroy de Charny, so Geoffroy II, essentially says it was freely offered. This was actually written by a letter by the Pope, but actually he's simply repeating what Geoffroy probably wrote. So this comes from Geoffroy. It was freely offered. Now, in 1418, Marguerite de Charny was brought to court and dole because actually the canon are trying to get back the shroud in 1418. And she simply says, about the Holy Shroud, which piece had been conquis, I left the French word there, conquis, by my deceased grandfather, Geoffroy de Charny. The word conquis does not necessarily mean that it was taken by force. Conquis doesn't mean takes by force something. You can apply conquis to things like you go up a high mountain. I conquis the mountain. Of course, you didn't take it by force. Doesn't make sense. Or you can even apply that to when you flirt with a woman. You say, I conquis that woman. There's no force applied here. It's just seducing, okay? So conquis has this meaning that you made an effort to obtain something. So if you combine the two, you can say that the shroud was freely given by someone and for which Geoffroy de Charny made an effort to obtain it. So Geoffroy did not take the shroud by force. I think if we follow these statements, and we have to have good reason to refute these statements. It was not stolen. It was none of that. I don't think you have to break these statements to go in that direction. And I think we don't need to do that. So now the last document I'm going to look at to lead at the Sainte-Chapelle is that there's a notice pour savoir la vérité, and essentially this notice says that Philip VI. It really says that, literally, Philip VI gave the shroud to Geoffroy de Charny. This is an historical document. We have to have good argument to reject that thing, to reject that statement. And it's true that in Pour savoir la vérité, when you read it, there's some fancy story about an angel that was able to liberate Geoffroy de Charny. But the whole thing makes sense because they mention Calais. It was given to Geoffroy de Charny because he attempted to regain Calais, Geoffroy de Charny. And actually, this is something very important it was very important for Philip VI. Philip VI, during the 100-Year War, Calais was taken by the King of England, and he was desperate. I mean, Philip VI was desperate to regain Calais. And so it was one of the most important tentatives by Geoffroy de Charny to regain Calais. And the canon here says that that's the reason why you receive the shroud, and that really makes sense. So the whole connection here makes sense. So now we're getting into the Sainte Chapelle. So the Sainte Chapelle, there's this Grande Chasse. Here's a picture of the Grande Chasse on the left. So in the Sainte Chapelle, I probably did not mention that so far, but the Sainte Chapelle was built specifically to contain the relics of Constantinople. So the whole building was built and finished in 1248, and the Grande Chasse contained the relics. And here we see the back of the Grande Chasse. We don't see the door, but there was two iron door to close it and lock it. And we can see the relics inside. We're going to go through them a little bit, but what I want to say here is that, of course, in the set of relics, you have a large piece of the true cross was in the Grande Chasse. So we have here item number 2 of the Relique en Lyrie. So we have a possible source that Philip VI could have used to give a piece of the true cross to Geoffroy de Charny. And also there was another reliquary, not in here, but it was in the sacristy, and it contained hairs of the Virgin. And so we have the 2 relics that I mentioned before that are at the Sainte Chapelle. So Philip VI had these relics, and he could give them to. And actually, it's part of them. He does not give the full relic; he just gives parts of those. So here's the Grande Chasse. The list is very long. I won't go through the whole thing, but it's interesting to look at a couple of them. Like this is the Crown of Thorns. The Crown of Thorns still exists, and it's still at the Notre Dame Church. If you go in Paris, you can even see it. There's a way to see it. It's on Friday, once a month. It still exists with us. And we have here a piece of the true cross. It was a big piece. And we still have it. We still have a piece of it. It is at Notre Dame Church in Paris. Then we have more, I would say, less known. This is number 4. Number 4 is a piece of the purple robe. It's a piece of the purple robe. And you can see the reliquary is very small. And actually, there's little windows we can see through. And it's called a tableau. It hangs in the back of the Grande Chasse. Another one here is number 12. Number 12 is a piece of the cloth used for washing the feet of the apostles. That comes from Constantinople. It's just a piece, and it's there, etc., etc. And the most important one, I will skip that one, is this one, number 18, the holy cloth inserted in a table. It's actually in a box, and the box looks like a bit the size of this thing here. Because when we look at the inventories, and here's the Shroud of Turin inside of it, but so when we look at the inventories later on, we'll see that it gives the exact size of that box. And you can see that it's kind of, I wouldn't say that, but it's kind of it's put actually underneath another relic, and it reached position 18. Because this drawing here was done in the 18th century, which according to the theory of the thesis of the Sainte Chapelle, the cloth disappeared. So I didn't mention that before. The relics from Constantinople, 22 relics from Constantinople are transferred to Sainte Chapelle. And on the second transfer, the holy cloth is actually transferred to the Sainte Chapelle. I mean, to Paris and then to the Sainte Chapelle. Why is it transferred? It's because Baudouin, the emperor of Constantinople, is out of money, and he's asking Saint Louis to buy all these relics. And he bought them at a very high price. And so the list of relics, I did present that before, but just repeating it here. So you have this long list of relics, and indeed you have one. It's all written in Latin here. It comes from the unofficial document. We have a copy of it. So this list is, we have a clear historical document. And number 8, Sanctam Toilam Tabula Insertam. The spelling, varies, depending on how you want to. There's some error here. There's probably an N you have to remove anyway. And so this means holy cloth inserted in a table. And I did mention that before. It's very important. You can see in the whole list of relics that they all have a function. So even the emperor in Constantinople, does not even know what this thing is, what it was used for. Was it used to wash the feet of the apostle? Was it used to put on his head? He doesn't say anything. He just say holy cloth. But all the others, we have a function. So I'm just saying here that they were unaware of what that thing was. They could not describe it. And as you can see, there's no word that says an image was on the cloth. So it's listed in as we don't know what it is. It's just a holy cloth in a box, essentially what they're saying. We have, so the first document I want to mention here, historical document about the arrival of the relics in Paris, is that Gérard de Saint-Quentin-en-Lille in 1241 described some of the relics. So because he wrote a chronicle of the transfer, he described how the whole set of 22 relics were transferred from Constantinople to Paris. And the whole story is very complex, but we won't go through that. But he did describe one relic, which actually happens to be the reliquary that contained the holy cloth. And he described it this way: a board that touched the face of the Lord when he was taken down from the cross. So the funny thing is that he's not describing what he's seeing. He does not say, I see a face, or something like this. He just says, or said, this thing that it was when he was brought down from the cross. So how come he knows it's from the time that Jesus was brought down from the cross? Is there blood there on the board? Maybe that's what he's seeing. And actually, this is confirmed by another document, which is called the Songe du Vergier. We won't go through that. It's a bit complex. I don't have the time. But it does mention that this image that was there, because there's an image there, indeed there was blood. Somebody else didn't mention it later on. So it's a relic that is related to the Passion of Christ. Another place where the cloth is mentioned is the songs that were sang at the Sainte Chapelle. The Sainte Chapelle had a whole choir of people singing, hymns, and there was a feast, the feast of the translation of the relics from Constantinople to the Sainte Chapelle. It was September 30th, I think, and these songs, it's mentioned Mappa and Mapula, which describe the holy cloth, and also the tabula was mentioned. I mentioned this because to really state that, again, in 1247, when these songs were written, apparently the person writing these songs knew that the holy cloth was still there, was still in the Sainte Chapelle. So I want to confirm here that the historical document tells us that indeed the holy cloth reached the Sainte Chapelle. Now we're going to go through the inventories of the Grande Chasse. And the inventories of the Grande Chasse is almost like an accountant. It has nothing to do with someone who is trying to find the authenticity of the relics. It's actually, this operation is done to make sure that relics and reliquaries are not lost. Because the reliquary, they were made of gold with precious stones, and people could steal them. And so there was a process where inventories has to be taken, like an accountant, and the official doing that were very cold-blooded in the sense, that they were very methodical, just describing what they were seeing. So it's interesting because these documents, the inventories, are not propaganda. They're just accounting statement being made in a book. So it's interesting to see how things are described. So all these inventories are written in French, and Alexandre Vidier in 1907, 08, and 09 published all the inventories. It's very long. It's 2 books that thick. And it's incredibly long. But there's only a few of these inventories that were made of the Grande Chasse. All the rest were other reliquaries, other relics. At some point, there's something like 350 items listed in these inventories. But the Grande Chasse is only 22, so simpler. So every inventory is described by a letter, A, B, C, D. So we're going to look at A, L, M, etc., 8 of them. But we're going to look at the latest one. We're going to start from the French Revolution, and we're going to go backward. I do that because I think it's simpler to analyze them that way. So the latest inventory in the Sainte-Chapelle that was done of the Grande Chasse, where we have 22 relics. So each time, for each inventory, there's 22 items being mentioned. I won't go through the 22 items, only one, the one that described the Holy Cloth. So, so inventory II happens, and this date is mentioned, November 18, 1793. This is almost like we are in not the end, but it's like 3 years after the beginning of the French Revolution. And we are at the moment where, all the relics were removed from the reliquaries. So we have 22 of them, they're put aside. And then the official of the French Revolution, they have to decide what to do with the reliquaries. Either they send it to melt the gold, to get the gold or the silver, or they keep the reliquary. So they did keep a few reliquary and they destroy others. I say that because if you look, there's a description that says, in English, of course I translate it in English, a box with a sliding cover in which there was a stone. So all the relics were removed and we only look at the reliquary. Now, this is something interesting. The reliquary of the Holy Cloth is described this way. Another box with a sliding cover containing a portrait. So what does it mean? It means that they could not remove the portrait. So they see a portrait, and they see a portrait of Christ. But it's there, and it seems to be stuck to the reliquary. They cannot remove it, because they're supposed to have removed all relics. So it's stuck at the bottom. What is that? No cloth is mentioned. It looks like the cloth is gone. Huh? Okay, we have to go a little bit backward. I will do this one quickly. There's only one relic or one relic that we were able to keep pieces of them. It's this reliquary. It's the reliquary of the stone that was in the tomb of Christ. And these pieces, these 2 paintings that we see here, they are at the Museum of Louvre. You can go and see and look at them. It would be interesting to look at them in details, but just to tell you that finally, after all the French Revolution and everything that happened, we have only these 2 pieces here. On the right, it's actually the same piece, but I turn around. We can see the front and the back. And we can see the front, the one completely on the left. It's an angel that points to the tomb of Christ. And the 2 women at the tomb are there. And they're asking, where's Jesus? Where's the corpse of Jesus? And of course, the tomb is completely empty. And again, that reliquary used to contain a piece of the stone of the tomb of Jesus. So now we're going backward again. We're still kind of close to the Revolution time. You can see inventory CC, 1791. What does it say? Une sainte face, a holy face. No cloth is mentioned. No cloth is mentioned. And these guys are supposed to observe and say what they're saying. What they're supposed to say, there's a relic and the relic is this. They don't say that. DD, 1791, almost at the same time. Holy Face, EE. Une autre boîte de 22 pouces, so another box of 22 inches. It's the same thing as inventory R, but no cloth is mentioned there. So notice the absence of cloth. So we're going even inventory 1740. This is actually the manuscript. It's in French. Les Archives nationales de France, the text. It says another box of 22 inches long by 15 inches wide, also covered by silver plates and decorated by a few precious stones. Inside the said box, the bottom is covered by golden plates. Oh, it looks like Abgar. This is Abgar, actually, the description of the Mendelian states that. It's funny, we have the same thing here. So there seems to be a connection. The golden plates. In all its contour, and the center is the representation of the holy face of our Lord, or the Veronica. The main thing I want to see here, first of all, there's no cloth mentioned anywhere. There's a portrait again. And if you read the French text, but the English also, it doesn't say that the portrait is on the cloth. It looks like it's simply at the bottom, painted at the bottom of the reliquary. So the portrait is there of the face, but no cloth. The interesting thing is that it gives you the dimension. So this is how this box was made the same size as the description here. This is how we know how big the reliquary was. And this is the reliquary of the Mendelian. I mean, eventually we make the connection. So I just gave you the dimension in centimeters, 60 centimeter. Again, I just said all of that. The portrait seems to be painted directly on the bottom. Now there's two other O and M, 1575, and then another one between 1534 and 1573. As you can see, the holy cloth, I mean, supposedly the holy cloth, the reliquary that was containing the holy cloth is described this way. La Véronique, so the Veronica, where the 10 stones are missing. So the person doing the work is simply saying there's a Veronica and the reliquary has 10 stones missing. And also the next one, La Véronique, the Veronica, where 10 stones are missing. No cloth is mentioned again. Well, okay. And then we arrive, I would say, almost at the last one. This is our last one. We arrive at inventory L, March 22, 1534. So 1534. So it's interesting here to read this one. This one is pretty complex, and something very strange happened here. The text says, and it's very short, la Sainte trelle insérée à la table, which means simply the holy trellis inserted in a table, and then between brackets, where is the face of our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, the English text comes from the French text, which comes from Vidier. But you can see the manuscript, which I have a copy there, doesn't say where's the face of our Lord Jesus Christ. But this was inserted, the brackets were inserted by Alexandre Vidier, because it's not very understandable, the holy trellis inserted in a table. How come it's not the holy cloth? That's very bizarre. Now, I can go through all the explanation, but I'll give you the crux of the reasoning here is that there is a comment, I will go directly to it, it's written in French, so they just say that, the trellis in a table, but then they add a comment, a very important comment. So the official, there are 8 people looking at the Grande Chasse, and essentially they're reading the last inventory, and they're supposed to find all the items from the last inventory. They're supposed to find all these items. And so they reach this item, the item number 19, and I will put the text in English. Where is it? Whoop. Oh, sorry. I don't have the text in English. Here, sorry. So the comment is there. I won't read it in French. In English, regarding the 8th item containing the trellis inserted in the box, after many difficulties, not much difficulties, many difficulties, it was finally found in a large reliquary and panel decorated with gilded silver, where there's the appearance of a portrait, the trellis like transformed against the said panel, around, by, and into the said portrait. Well, if you did not understand that, that's okay, because it's very obscure. What's happening, it seems, is that they're reading the word cloth from the last inventory. They're searching for a cloth. They cannot find it. And then they say, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening? So they probably at that point says, okay, the last inventory, there was an error. It was not the word toile that was supposed to be there, but the word trellis. And so they insert trellis in there. So they change the word and they hide the fact that they lost the cloth. That's the way we can see that it disappeared. They're hiding the fact that they lost it. And because after that, we are at the last one, because after that, as you know, the word cloth never appears again. The word trellis never appears again. How am I doing on my time here? I'm done. Wow. So I will skip this and simply end. I will simply end here with this. Give me 1 minute. So one of the main objections to the thesis of the Sainte Chapelle is that people would say, but how come they never open it and look into it? What's wrong with them? How come they didn't look carefully at this cloth that was there? Well, again, very few people had access to the relics. Essentially, the relics were only accessible by the king. And you have in history, you have other cases like that people don't analyze the relics. This relics here is that it is still there at the Cathedral de Chartres, but for 8 centuries, the veil was called a chemise, a blouse of the Virgin. But eventually, in the 18th century, they opened it and they realized not a blouse; it's just a sheet so they never open it, they never analyze it. So the idea of analyzing relics is a modern point of view. In those days, they were not analyzing, the relics and describing them with pictures. We have no drawing of them. We have nothing. So they were not analyzing these cloths. So the cloth was there. They didn't know what it was. They did not even knew that the Mandingan existed, and so they were not looking for it. So, and unfortunately, I don't have the time, or maybe yes. This is my proposal for the time and the place where the transfer occurred. And there are historical documents to support that proposal. So on March 23rd and April 12, Philip VI was at the Abbey of Notre-Dame-du-Lys. Some relics of the Sainte Chapelle were transferred there during Easter. There's a document that says that. So Philip VI would go there, and he would actually he would pass Easter there. And also Geoffroy de Charny went close by at the same time, just a week later, and they meet because there's a document that says the funding of the Liré Church was modified at that time almost. And at the same time, Geoffroy de Charny sends a letter to Pope Clement VI asking for indulgences. So the relics are there, Geoffroy de Charny is there, and Philip VI is there. So what did happen exactly? I think relics were transferred at that time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you were earlier. You have demerits now. So,
But didn't I lose some time?
Huh? Did you? You lost 10 minutes? Oh, well, all is forgiven. Okay. Very, very good. Thank you. So, all right. So up next is Cesar Barta. Is that how I say it? And he is from Madrid, Spain. So we've had many countries represented here.